All right, what do we got here? We got some protests going on in Ukraine, anti-Zelensky protests. I believe that Zelensky was trying to backtrack on a law over anti-corruption bodies after protests. Because keep in mind, Ukraine, very corrupt country, extremely fucking corrupt. And broadly speaking, there's a lot of complicated reasonings for as to why this is the case. A lot of it is because of Russian meddling. A lot of it is because of the rather tumult sort of a time that Ukraine has been as a fucking country ever since 1991 as a result of the collapse of the Soviet Union. Lots of complicated reasonings and history as to why that's the case. We could probably talk about that for potentially hours. Not really 100% sort of the case and relevant here, but all we need to know is Ukraine still very corrupt. I know, broadly speaking, that Zelensky has been cracking down significantly on a lot of the corruption sort of issues that Ukraine has been having. He did that relatively early on in his fucking presidency. Of course, the Russians want to use that as like basically an excuse, and I've seemingly lefties also want to use that as like seemingly an excuse for us to like Zelensky's like going after like communist parties within Ukraine, despite the fact that they all have said that they want to join back with the Russians. So like it makes sense as to why Zelensky would probably want to crack down on those guys. Also, like the excuses of him like not holding elections within Ukraine is just like he's not holding elections in Ukraine because about a fifth of the country has been taken over by the Russians, and a lot of people have left the country as refugees. So it kind of makes a lot of sense that a lot of the elections might be suspended. It's even within the constitution of Ukraine itself saying like if we're in a state of total war, we could probably suspend elections for the time being because we're currently at war. So, and that seems to be the case with the Russians. They appear to be at war. So, like, what I don't know. What do we got here? Zelensky is backtracking on law over anti-corruption bodies over after protests. Well, I think that's probably a good thing, right? Right, because a lot of those sort of like anti-corruption efforts, I believe, have been rather successful that Zelensky's been carrying out. So good. Why don't we learn a little bit more of the details? Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he has submitted a draft law to reinstate the freedom of two anti-corruption bodies in Ukraine, days after nationwide protests broke out over changes curbing their independence. So he curbed their independence. Why would he curb their independence, right? Like a lot of the argument that a bunch of people might make is because this is just a power grab, right? The point of this is because Zelensky wants to centralize more power under himself and become a dictator, and it's just like, is that the case? Now I'm not 100% certain for as to what the intention for this is supposed to do. Like I don't know if we're going. I don't think they're going to release the details on this one, to be honest. Maybe for like read more, because I do think, like, broadly speaking, going after a lot of anti-corruption measures in a country that is rather corrupt does look rather fucking suspicious. And again, like, a lot of people are also probably not very particularly happy about the fact that the war is also dragging on. It's been like what, 3 years at this point that the war has been going on between the Russians and the Ukrainians. Kiev's Western partners had also expressed serious concerns over the legislation. On Thursday, Zelensky backtracked, saying the new bill was intended to safeguard the independence of Ukraine's National Anti-Corruption Bureau, NABU, and Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office, or SAP, and to protect them from Russian influence. I That seems a little strange then, right? Because I believe these offices have already been successful in terms of cracking down on a lot of corruption within the Ukrainian government, especially on a lot of more of the Russian backed sort of forces and parties. Saying that it needs to, what? Need to be safeguarded from a lot of Russian influence seems a little strange to me. Is it entirely possible that a lot of the officials might be getting wired money from Russian sources or something? We could speculate till the nines come home, but like, that's possible. But this one, I'm just kind of like thinking, kind of sus. Just kind of sus. I'll be quite honest here, because it like I do agree broadly speaking with what a lot of the sort of proponents of this bill are saying like, yeah, it's kind of suspicious that Zelensky is doing this. And I'm just like, I don't really disagree with that at all. I do think it is a little weird that Zelensky is trying to sort of, I guess for like lack of a better term, kind of try to crack down a little bit on a lot of the anti-corruption stuff that's like going on. It's one of those situations like why is he doing that? This is a little weird. I just find it a little strange. I find it a little perplexing. Like, even though they've already been successful in the past, why further crack down on them to protect them from fucking Russian influence? That's weird. Well, at least he's backtracking off of it because from what I understand, they've already been quite successful. So, like, why go after it to begin with? It seems strange to me. He said the text of the bill was well balanced, but did not provide any details. Like, we're probably not going to get any. Nabu said the new bill restored all procedural powers and guarantees of independence of the two bodies. The law passed earlier this week brought Nabu and SAP under the control of the Prosecutor General, who is appointed by the President. Okay, so Prosecutor General who's appointed by the President, who's more than likely going to be more interested in carrying out a lot of what the President wants to do, for example. Sure, yeah, I can see the potential, like, conflict of interest there. Yeah, makes sense. At the time, Zelensky justified his decision to curtail the body's powers by citing Russian influence. The day before, Ukraine's security services had carried out searches and arrests targeting alleged Russian spies at the agency. So there may be some Russian spies within the agency. Okay, so like I was saying before, there could be some potential problems with a lot of the agents within these anti-corruption like bureaus and stuff getting Russian money. Entirely possible. Would have to see some fucking evidence of that, right? The passing of the legislation instantly sparked the largest protests since the start of the Russia's full-scale invasion in February 2022 in several cities across Ukraine, with many worrying the law would severely undermine the Nabu and SAP's authority and effectiveness. I don't necessarily disagree with this argument, I'll be honest. Because I find it perplexing, a little strange that Zelensky has to do this in order to try to stop corruption, like Russian agents potentially corrupting these boards. Because, like I said before, they've already been highly successful in cracking down on a lot of corruption. Does that mean they were influenced by Russian money now? Maybe. I mean, it's entirely possible, but like again, would have to see some kind of evidence for that. Thousands of people gathered in the streets and squares across Ukraine, holding placards calling for the legislation to be vetoed. Several commentators accused Zelensky of democratic backsliding. Their concerns, I wonder who these commentators were, I'm very curious. Their concerns were further exacerbated when Ukraine's Western partners signaled their displeasure with the bill. I think that's pretty reasonable, right? If the Western powers are also saying, I think this is probably the most credible sort of way to interpret this, to be like, yeah, this might be a bit of a problem if you're deciding to do this, right? Like, maybe it's like Zelensky also himself trying to test the waters. Like, I don't know, like, there are so many, like, potential angles to, like, look at this and analyze this to be like, I don't know, it could be this, it could be that, it could be A, it could be B, it could be C. There are so many ways to potentially look at this and be like, yeah, this is a little sus, this is a little weird. I can understand the potential concerns that a lot of people are having with this in particular. I don't think that's like ridiculous or hyperbolic to say whatsoever. Ukraine has official EU candidate status and a spokesman for European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen previously warned Kiev that the rule of law and the fight against corruption were core elements of membership of the bloc. That's true, which they've already been quite successful in, right? On Thursday, the Commission said it welcomed the Ukrainian government's decision to take action against the bill. We are working with the Ukrainian government to make sure that our concerns are taken into account, the spokesperson said. The creation of NABU and SAP in 2014 and 2015 was one of the requirements set by the European Commission and the International Monetary Fund to move towards a relaxation of visa restrictions between Ukraine and the EU. Opposition MP Alexei Goncharenko noted Zelensky's comments that the independence of anti-corrupting institutions must be guaranteed. First we take it away, then we say it must be guaranteed, so why was all this necessary? I don't know, dude. Who really knows? In his message on social media on Thursday, Zelensky did not acknowledge the protests or the backlash, but it was important that we respect the position of all Ukrainians and are grateful to everyone who stands with Ukraine. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Like, what was the point of any of this, right? Like, that's the ultimate question that I have. Like, because, like I said before, these anti corruption offices have already been quite successful. And we all know that, broadly speaking, the European Association Agreement was popular amongst Ukrainians. And Zelensky was, sort of helping to kind of follow up on that. I'm surprised that these were allowed to be created within 2014 and 2015. I guess this was before Poroshenko decided to backtrack and decide to go along with the fucking Russians. He was like complying with what the EU essentially wanted because again, in order to be able to join the EU and NATO, a lot of requirements there require crackdowns on corruption, and the reason for that is because there was a lot of that within the former Soviet bloc countries, and that is, trust me being from Romania, I could tell you about some of the fucking shady stories that I have been told by a bunch of the parents that I know about some of the stories that they have about like weird shit going on in terms of Romania, in terms of the state apparatus of Romania. There's a lot of fucking sussy shit. So it's pretty fair and understandable for there to be like sort of anti-corruption measures that the EU is pushing for, to be like, yeah, you guys need to crack down on that stuff because it ain't good. We know that the Soviet Union had a lot of fucking problems, and yeah, you guys might need to take care of a lot of that stuff. So I don't really know why did Zelensky try to curtail some of the independence that these two corruption offices have, even though they've been successful already in rooting out a lot of corruption. I don't really know. It's a little suspicious. It's a little weird for sure. And I guess like I don't know, whatever the sort of West decided to like sniff out and say like we have some problems with this. I don't think that this is going to go as well as you think it is. Like this may be like some fucking bullshit here. Some corruption on your end. I don't know if it's like Zelensky potentially testing boundaries. That's another potential angle of all this. I think overall this is just kind of strange, and I guess I am glad that this has been basically backtracked upon, because these two offices, the NABU and the SAP, have been quite successful in rooting out a lot of corruption. So again, I don't really understand like as to what was like really the point of this. What was this meant to really accomplish? I think that's ultimately like really the only question that I have, but we're probably not going to know about any of that stuff, like the ultimate goal that was supposed to go on here. So I guess it's good that it ultimately got backtracked, because I do think that these offices have been quite successful. Don't think there's really much else to say, well, besides that.